So now you might be wondering, what do we do with fractions that don't have a denominator of 10? Well, there's just one small step we have to do. Okay, if you remember equivalent fractions, whenever we multiply or divide the numerator and the denominator with the same number, we get something called an equivalent fraction. So I just need to find a number I can multiply with so that my denominator becomes a 10. So I'm going to ask myself, what do I have to multiply 5 with to make the denominator 10? Well, I know 5 plus 5 equals 10, which means I need 2 5s in total. So I'm going to multiply by 2. So whatever I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. So I'm going to multiply 3 by 2 as well. And my equivalent fraction becomes 3 times 2 equals 6 as the numerator. 5 times 2 equals 10 as the denominator. Now, how do I read this fraction? The numerator is the same, 6, and the denominator, we have to add a THS, so this is 6/10. And it's just a simple matter of inputting 6 in the tenths column. And we know that this fraction is less than 1 whole. So there shouldn't be anything here, and we're going to represent that by putting a 0 in the ones column. So 3/5 in decimal form is actually just 0.6. Now I'm going to show an example that actually uses the hundredths column when we're converting fractions into decimals on our place value chart. Because if you remember from the previous example, we tried to change the denominator into a 10 so that we can easily read the fraction and just input the numbers on our place value chart. Well, this time we have to go the other way, because if we try to make this into a 10 again, we would have to divide 20 by 2, which is fine, but if we were to divide 1 by 2, we're going to get a number that's even smaller than 1, and that's just going to complicate everything. So instead, we're going to try to go the other way. We're going to make the denominator even bigger. So how can we change the number 20 into 100 so that our denominator is very easy for us to read? Well, if we skip count, we can count 20, 40, 60, 80, and then 100, right? So how many times did that take? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I were to multiply the denominator by 5 and the numerator by 5, we can find the equivalent fraction again. So 5 times 1, the numerator is 5. Then 5 times 20, we know is 100. And how would I read this fraction? I'll read it as 5 hundredths. Now, you probably already know the next step. Whatever I read, I just have to input into my place value chart. So 5 in the hundredths place, right? And there's nothing in the tenths and nothing in the ones, tens, or hundreds. So 1/20th with the equivalent fraction of 5 hundredths in decimal form is 0.05.